win.
Cam drifts back, serving, pressure. He's going to throw back against his body. Jeff Simmons! Jeff Simmons! That is a touchdown.
Tighten up.
Let's get it, Chad.
He got a touchdown.
Tighten up, Chad. Stop playing, Chad. Tighten up, man.
Tighten up, chat. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Music City Audible Live, MCA Live, coming to you on Friday morning. It is currently 10:32 a.m. Central Standard Time, and as of this recording, since our last podcast, the Titans have interview requests out to 4 more candidates, which brings their total number up to 15 that they are going to be interviewing. For now, that number could still grow. Welcome, everyone. Justin Graver here alongside Justin Melo for the Music City Audible. We are presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville, in partnership with 440 Sports. Happy to be back live. How you doing, Justin?
Well, I'm doing well. Our first live show since last Sunday. Excited that listen, we did a podcast yesterday, a really good one. We end every podcast going, I wonder what we're going to have to talk about tomorrow. And lo and behold, the Titans request interviews with 4 new candidates, 4 since we last spoke, all of whom I would say are really important, that they are on this list. A couple we had been waiting for. One big one, we weren't sure if he was going to make it to this list or not after some midweek reporting. We have a lot to talk about. 15 candidates is a lot. And I'm actually going to pose a question to you later about the length of the list. But for now, throw it back. I never ask you how you're doing, Graver. You always ask me. I always get to say I'm doing well. Mind my manners. How are you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, Justin. I'm actually doing better now than I was the second I woke up because it took me a few minutes to wipe the sleep out of my eyes, find my phone. I don't like to look at my phone first thing when I wake up, but in this business, we kind of have to because we got to know what happened while I was asleep. And today, what happened while I was asleep? The Titans put out interview requests for 2 new candidates this morning, one of whom is my absolute top of the list favorite candidate in this coaching cycle, maybe higher than the established guys like the Harbaughs and the Stefanskis, which is maybe a little insane to say. But Chris Shula is my guy. Like, if this team hires Chris Shula, you will not find a happier person on planet Earth than me. And I am really into Chris Shula. And Chris Shula got an interview request today, along with Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. Yesterday, shortly after we recorded, luckily, Justin, we were able to get the podcast published yesterday before news broke out, which was the first day this week that we did that. We didn't get to talk about it, but at least the podcast was out, as opposed to we record, news breaks, we drop the show, missing the news that broke in the middle, which is one of the reasons we're live today. But anyway, after yesterday's show was out, Kliff Kingsbury and Mike McCarthy get added to the interview list as well. And we just talked about where are all the good candidates. Here they come. And we said not to panic. They're going to interview all these guys. They've been reportedly interested in them for weeks. And here we go. All the good candidates. The only one that I can think of, and maybe there are more, Justin, maybe there's 2. The only 2, interestingly enough, when they're casting this wide of a net, that I think it's strange we haven't heard anything about, is Clint Kubiak and Joe Brady.
Yeah, I mean, certainly of the first-time candidates, I guess those are the only 2. Anthony Campanile, I guess, I don't know if you'd include in there, or Anthony Weaver, a couple other first-time guys that they haven't requested to interview yet. But this is a big one, and I think you and I are on the same page. It's like I feel like I've got the devil and angel on my shoulder. Like the angel's telling me, let's go the safe route. Let's go with the retread. You can't afford to miss on a first-time candidate again after Brian Callahan was such a disaster. And I was, you know what? I do want to listen to you. I'm scared. I want to be held, and I want to be told it's going to be okay. And the big burly arms of Mike McCarthy could probably wrap around me and make me feel safe and make me feel good. But that devil on the other shoulder right now is going, you'll never get anywhere in life. I don't know why he's got that voice, but you'll never get anywhere in life if you don't take a risk. And Chris Shula is the way to go. Stop being a big baby. I can't quit Chris Shula. I'm really intrigued by him. I think the way he worked up the ladder, with Sean McVay, we know how close they are, but he made him earn it, right? He went through a bunch of assistant roles with the Rams, worked under some really good defensive coordinators. I mean, he's been there forever, so I assume he lived through Brandon Staley, Raheem Morris, like a bunch of guys who left for head coaching opportunities before he got the job. I just can't quit Chris Shula. By the way, we were getting so many good questions in the chat. Do you mind if I answer a couple of them before we lose them? I don't know how you
I'm
feel
starring
about
some
that.
good ones here. If you want to hit the little star in the upper right corner of each comment and save it for a second, let's talk about Shula, and then we'll take a break and answer these questions that you like. But just start starring them there in the chat, Justin. So yeah, Chris Shula, to me, one of the biggest selling points for me is what he's done with the Rams defense. And it's not just scheming up a system for good players to go execute, which you can look at some of the other candidates in this cycle and say maybe that's what's happening. Chris Shula took over a defense right after Aaron Donald retired with a ton of rookies on a team that has had one first-round pick in like the last 8 years. And immediately they were a top defense in the NFL when everyone expected them to take a major step back. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, a bunch of veterans were all let go or retired or changed teams, and the Rams were left with a bunch of young guys, second, third, and fourth round picks, undrafted free agents. Obviously, Jared Verse is a first-round pick and is maybe their best player on defense, but the hit rate on the defensive side of the ball, and maybe this is a Les Snead thing or Sean McVay, but I have to believe Chris Shula has done an incredible job developing these guys, getting them ready to play. I've watched numerous YouTube video breakdowns on Chris Shula's scheme. I've watched him speaking in press conferences. I like everything about this candidate. I think he's one of the special ones, and it's not just because he's connected to McVay, but McVay, we know, is an offensive-minded head coach, and obviously McVay's been there so long that he oversees the whole operation, no doubt about it. But a lot of his attention has to go towards designing the offense because he is the play caller, which means that the defense has to be led by somebody who can take charge of a unit, of an entire side of the ball on their own, and that to me is Chris Shula, the way that he's done that in LA the last 2 seasons. Defense traditionally being an unstable metric from year to year. The Rams defense has been great 2 years in a row, and just getting the most out of non-premium draft picks. To me, that says he's a good teacher, has a great scheme. Yeah, go ahead.
I do think that narrative, as much as I like him, is slightly blown out of proportion. Not totally, because what helped retool that D-line, they got some early picks like Byron Young, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk. Like, I think Les Snead hit on those 3 picks specifically. That definitely helped them retool. But look, the secondary for a long time had a bunch of unknowns. Cameron Curl, a couple of other guys back there. They made the most. Kobe Durant, Kobe Turner's a mid-round D lineman they hit on. So definitely, I think a little from column A, a little from column B.
Yeah, it's like a chicken or egg scenario because those guys being hits, like, were they hits because would have been hits on any team, or were they hits because they were a fit for what Chris Shula wanted to do and he got the most out of them? It's like it's something that goes around. It's like a snake eating itself.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm with you. I'm really high on him. I just think if they're going to hire a first-time candidate, I think I'd go as far as to say I don't think actually, no, that's not true, because I do really like Jeff Hafley as another first-time candidate. So I think those are probably the only 2 that I'm really comfortable with. And I know we're going to talk about Jesse Minter in a second. He's obviously a really popular league-wide first-time candidate, but I just feel better about Shula and Hafley than I do about Minter. You want to get to this question? I know we've been starring questions, but it looks like you want to get to this one right now.
Well, this one's related to the conversation. The random warlord. Justin, don't forget to read the questions for our audio audience. I can't see this. Any OC candidates off the top of the dome for Shula? Well, I mean, Mike LaFleur's in LA right now with Shula. I don't know if I necessarily think that Mike LaFleur is going to go be a play calling OC this cycle, or like, this is pure speculated dot connecting. This isn't actual, reporting that we don't even know if they're close. I mean, they work on the same staff, but who knows? Nathan Scheelhaus, or is it actually pronounced Scheel Chase? There's been some confusion over how to pronounce the Rams quarterback's coach name, but
I believe it's Fieldhouse.
Yeah,
I remember looking into it.
Somebody on TV the other day said Shield Chase, and it was a big deal. So let us know in the comments how do you pronounce it. But we're gonna start. Let's just keep saying Shield House for now, but acknowledging we might be getting that wrong. At least if we acknowledge it, then it's a little better. A young rising star type of guy who's probably going to be an OC and maybe a head coach himself one day. I think he's definitely in play. Or you look at, what the team might do for Chris Shula, the way they helped Mike Vrabel as a first-time head coach and paired him with Matt LaFleur. Maybe it's Matt Nagy. Maybe it's Jason Garrett or one of these other random interviews that they're doing on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe it's Kliff Kingsbury.
Illinois alum here. He played quarterback, I believe, at Illinois. That's where I saw a clip of him being interviewed when he was playing quarterback, and the reporter called him Shield House. So that's what I thought it was. But yes, certainly him, Mike LaFleur. I also wonder, Chris Shula is a first-time candidate. I wonder, there we go. We'll never know, I think is the correct answer. I wonder, though, as a first-time candidate, will the Titans...
I like this pronunciation. It's School Mouse.
It's School Mouse. That's the best one so far. I do wonder if the Titans can convince him to hire an offensive coordinator for him, though. Like, could they hire Chris Shula as head coach and have Matt Nagy come coordinate the offense? I do wonder if that's going to be the case with some of these first-time guys that the Titans are interviewing.
All right, Justin, let's get to some of your starred comments. Actually, let's start with this one that I just had on screen. Now that we have officially requested Shula and Minter, the whole list is actually looking pretty fire. Let's look at the list, huh? Why don't we look at the list? This is the list of Titans candidates who they have requested to interview so far. This is sorted by how in demand they are. So this is a way to look at what other teams are also interested in the candidates the Titans are interested in, and how much demand are there? How much competition for their services is there? Vance Joseph has received the most interview requests with 6. Out of the 8 vacancies, Joseph has 6 requests. That's more than your favorite candidate. Unless your favorite candidate is John Harbaugh, who hasn't formally received really any requests, but is apparently been contacted by like 9 teams now, it's up to, even though there's only 8 openings. So Vance Joseph at the top of the list, 6 requests. Kevin Stefanski has 4 requests. Robert Saleh has 4 requests. Matt Nagy, who everyone hates and thinks Borgonzi's just going to hire because he's his buddy and is not really a qualified candidate outside of that, has 4 requests, tied for second most of anyone on this list. Kliff Kingsbury, 3 requests. He hasn't been on the market as long. There could be some more emerging for him. Jeff Hafley, 3 requests. Raheem Morris, 3 requests. And then we get into only 2 requests. Mike McCarthy, Jesse Minter, interestingly enough, who we're about to talk about, who Jim Harbaugh, not John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh,
the Browns
has said,
just requested Minter as we went live
a
few minutes ago. So we're on 3 for Minter.
Bump Minter up to 3. Lou Anarumo actually does have 2 requests. The Titans aren't the only psychotic team trying to interview Lou Anarumo, the other one being the Giants. And then Chris Shula. Chris Shula has more than 1 request, doesn't he? This must be a little out of date.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Shula's got more than 1.
But then the other candidates who we can, based on the fact that the Titans are the only ones interested in them, say maybe this is a little bit, they're not real candidates. Jason Garrett, Mike McCoy, Steve Spagnuolo, and Arthur Smith with only 1 interview request, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no surprise that some of those guys, I mean, I don't think anyone thought Mike McCoy was going to get more than the Titans' request. Shula has 2 requests according to James here. I believe that's correct. But certainly like Spags, that's one. That's still, by the way, number 15 for me. I don't know if that's, going to be the case for everyone else, but I would rank Spags as number 15. I would rank Jason Garrett ahead of Spags. I mean, I guess Mike McCoy would be 15 if I'm including him, but Spags would be 14 at best. I definitely have even Jason Garrett above Spags, and I certainly have even guys I don't really love, like Lou Anarumo and Vance Joseph and Arthur Smith. Like, I'd have all of those guys. Yeah, I don't love Vance Joseph. You can make that face. I'd have all of those guys above Spags. That's the worst one by far. But should we talk a little Jesse Minter? That was the other big request that came through this
Unless
morning.
there were starred comments. Didn't you say there were some questions you wanted to answer first?
Absolutely. If you got the starred comments, bring them up. I starred a bunch of good ones up there that I thought I wanted to get to.
What is the earliest you would reasonably expect a team to make a hire?
I wanted to answer this one specifically because I thought it was really interesting yesterday that when the Mike McCarthy news came out, it was reported that they were going to interview him. I believe they said next Saturday. So that is we're still a week away from Mike McCarthy doing his first interview. So logic would indicate they're not going to move to the second stage of interviews, which will be the final in-person stage. We're probably still 9-10 days away from that, unless that was misreported and it's this Saturday. But no reason to believe that, right? So assuming that McCarthy interview is next Saturday, they're still a long ways away. And it makes sense because a lot of these, the Minters, the Shulas, the Robert Salas, they can't interview till next week anyway, right? Because they're all coaching.
They can only interview next week if they lose.
Right. So a couple of them probably won't even be able to interview. A couple of them will. So this is going to take a pretty long process, is the impression that I get, unless someone knocks them out of the park and they decide to advance to the second round before that. But in my opinion, I wouldn't expect anything for at least another, probably 12 to 14 days.
Well, it will be after the Super Bowl because Chris Shula and the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl, and then the Titans will hire Chris Shula right after that. So it's going to be a while, like 4 more weeks at least. Speaking of good questions, Melo, what is Canada's best export? Maple syrup or all dressed chips?
You're probably mad that I'm sorry?
What are all dressed chips?
You don't know what those are?
Never heard of that.
You know what's funny? I'm not a huge fan of them. They're basically a mismatch of everything. Now, I know that might sound kind of weird, but it's not like you're going to get 13 different flavor profiles. Like, you get a little vinegar because you get, vinegar chip. You get a little bit of barbecue. They're literally picture like an everything bagel. It's the everything chip. I can't believe you've never even heard of them before. But I'll tell you what, I'm not a big fan, but the one that's phenomenal, Miss Vicky's. If you've never had Miss Vicky's all dressed, they actually call them all dressed up. The Miss Vicky all dressed up chip is phenomenal, but I'm not a diehard fan. I am going to go with the maple syrup. I'm a maple syrup on my pancakes, on my waffles, but the all dressed chip is pretty cool.
Yeah, just real quickly, since we're on the topic, David Jenkins says if they find the one, meaning the candidate they definitely want to hire, they could shorten the interview process as long as they satisfy the Rooney Rule. Yes, but David, the one, as I've just told you, is going to be playing in the Super Bowl, so I don't know. It might take a while.
That's a good point about the Rooney Rule, though, because they've got to interview 2 weeks. Well, we know they already interviewed Vance Joseph.
Here's the thing, actually. They have to interview 2 minority candidates in person. So Vance Joseph's Wednesday Zoom does not satisfy that part of the rule. Raheem Morris's in-person interview, whenever it's actually scheduled for Sunday or Monday, conflicting reports on that one, probably Monday, that will satisfy part 1. And then they need to interview another minority candidate in person. Robert Saleh, if they get to that, would satisfy it as well. But they do need to do that.
I think Raheem Morris, right, as well.
I just said Raheem Morris will satisfy half of it, yeah. Dawson Smith, 1251. With a super chat here. Shout out to you guys and going live on Fridays. No, Dawson, shout out to you for the super chat. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Justin, you want to get to another question? Well, I'll just tease this real quick because it's in the video description. Nash Barbecue Bob says, a case for Vance Joseph? Is it that he went to in-game management classes? I see somebody's been listening to football and other F words. We'll talk about Vance Joseph. I'm going to make the case for Vance Joseph. Not necessarily because I want the Titans to hire Vance Joseph, but because I think that, well, first of all, he's on my list of, we talked about yesterday, if they hire him, I'm okay with it. He's on that list for me. Melo, I don't know if he's on your do not hire list, but I know you're not particularly high on him as a head coach. We're going to talk about him in a minute. After we get through the 4 new interview candidates and answer some of your guys' questions, I'm going to go on a spiel and make a case for him. So just stick around for it if you're actually curious. Question from Hayden Fiedler, 5661. Am I crazy for really liking McDaniel for head coach? I just love the idea of that mastermind scheming an offense for Cam. Over to you.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think you're crazy. I've got a couple of reservations about his ability to hold guys accountable, lead, command a team. His teams were routinely soft in Miami, but I also wonder if that's being a little overblown. Like on the flip side of that, and I always love playing devil's advocate against myself, they started the season poorly, but they didn't quit on him. They closed out strong. They went on a bit of a winning streak. Like they played well down the stretch. So maybe we overblow this Mike McDaniel. And sometimes we stereotype, in all honesty, right? Like we see Robert Saleh, and I like Robert Saleh, but we see him as this rah-rah guy. He's got a lot of muscle. He's big. He's tough. Like sometimes I do think we let stereotypes kind of meddle in our observations of these coaches, especially when it comes to who's a culture leader and motivator type of thing. But I do have some questions about his ability in that area. But absolutely, I mean, the scheme on offense, I would be thrilled, over the moon, to see Cam Ward have a mastermind offensive coach like Mike McDaniel. So certainly, if they end up putting in a request and interviewing him, he's definitely going to be on my top 5 of candidates they interviewed. He might even be I don't know that he'll be my number 1, but he'll probably be on my top 3.
Yeah, I'm definitely into Mike McDaniel as an offensive coordinator. As a head coach,
sure.
like I could get behind it. I'm not saying I'm not behind it. There's lots of reasons why his Miami tenure ended the way it did, but I think you can point to their close to the season and say, like, this team didn't quit. They kept playing hard for the coach, which speaks to culture, which everyone always wants to talk about culture. And can Mike McDaniel lead a good culture because his team can't win a cold weather game? Like, there are real concerns with that, but you also wonder how much of that is player driven and how much of that is real. And then you hear what Stephen Ross reportedly thought when they fired McDaniel, which, now look, reporters I respect, like Jeff Darlington, are going all out to say that firing Mike McDaniel had nothing to do with John Harbaugh's availability, that there was a process that played out in that building, meetings between Stephen Ross and Mike McDaniel and trying to find out who the next GM's going to be and if that new GM wants to keep McDaniel or not. And eventually it all culminated with Stephen Ross deciding that while the end of the season close was nice, he didn't want to keep the status quo, and that was a quote. And Jeff Darlington is pushing that this was not Harbaugh related. Even if they end up hiring Harbaugh, they were going to fire McDaniel, whether Harbaugh was on the market or not. I don't know how much I believe that, but these guys are putting reputations on the line, guys who are respected reporters. So it's interesting. I think that McDaniel, with a second chance, maybe he does a few things a little differently coming into the locker room to be able to not have like a culture of quitters. Although I don't necessarily think that that's what he had in Miami anyway. It's a tough one. It's one where I'd be, you know what? Superhorn said it best on Twitter. If you don't follow Superhorn, you should, @super_horn. Said, most of these candidates are going to fail anyway. Hire Mike McDaniel because he's fun and he'll give us some great sound bites along the way. And you know what? Honestly, I'm okay with that as a philosophy.
Let's get to the super.
Should we hit this
chat
one?
here and answer.
Yeah, we got to hit the
question
super
here.
chat.
Wow, incredible! Thank you so much, Zach, with 2K61 with a 27.99 super chat tip. That's incredibly generous, Zach. Thank you so much for that. He asks, what current head coaching openings are most least attractive, and where should the Titans fall on that list? Could the ascendant AFC South impact how the job is viewed? Loving the Titans podcast, by the way. You know, if you don't mind, I might combine this with something. Our pal Atlas, who is in this chat right now, sent me a DM the other day that I'd promised him I'd read on the show. When you look at all these job openings, it's you know, I think this is very subjective. I think people tend to get over their heels a little bit in assuming there is a clear-cut order for these things. And this might be the boring answer, but a lot of this, like, where do you want to live? Where do you want to raise a family? Nashville, Tennessee, you know, certainly benefits from a state income tax perspective, right? Like, it's a great place to raise a family. It's a beautiful town to live in. How do you value, you know, culture, things to do, places to eat? Like, Nashville's a wonderful place on that list. And if you want to live out in the boonies, it's very different than Nashville. And it's a great, quiet place to raise a family. You can get whatever you want in the state of Tennessee. They're building a new stadium. I think that matters a lot more to these candidates than people realize. They've got a young franchise quarterback. And listen, when you know, people talk about Jackson Dart and other guys. When a quarterback goes number 1 overall, I promise you, it's almost league consensus that the whole league loves that quarterback almost every single time. So I think Cam Ward is going to be viewed very favorably by most head coaching candidates. They've got a ton of salary cap space, over $100 million. They've got the number 4 pick in the draft. They've got a GM who I think has a great reputation in Mike Borgonzi. Dating back to his days with the Chiefs, he was viewed as one of the top GM candidates. And I combine this with Atlas, who asked me the question in a Twitter DM, and he pointed out some great things. The Cardinals, they don't have their franchise quarterback. They don't have a lot of cap space. There are questions there about the GM. The Atlanta Falcons, they don't have a lot of cap space. They don't have a first-round pick. The GM is probably going to answer to the president of football ops, who they're going to make Matt Ryan. The Ravens, I think subjectively, objectively, however you want to say it, are probably going to be viewed by the Titans, objectively, by most candidates, right? Like a great owner, consistent winning history, great general manager, 2-time franchise quarterback. No doubt the Ravens are one of those no-brainers you're putting above the Titans. And then when you get to the Raiders, they've been a mess for so long. Yes, they've got the number 1 pick overall, so that might impact, if you want to come coach Fernando Mendoza, someone's going to like the Raiders job more than the Titans. Others won't agree. The Browns, mess of ownership, no franchise quarterback. They end up picking 6th, so behind the Titans. GM Andrew Berry, all of this is very objective, but I do think the Titans have a better shot at being high on a lot of these teams' lists, or these candidates' lists, than some of these others.
Yeah, I think the Raiders could be viewed as a blank slate, or they could be viewed as a dumpster fire. The Browns could be viewed like a team that needs stability and a leader, and I don't really know how to spin the Browns one as a positive thing, to be honest. The Browns might be the worst opening alongside the Raiders. I think the Titans are in that middle tier.
I don't know what the Cardinals are selling people on.
Yeah, I agree. The Cardinals are a tough situation because you are going to go in there as the head coach and have to make a massive decision right off the bat. Is Kyler Murray your quarterback or not? And that might play a part in who they hire. That might be an interview question 2 or 3 for Monty Ossenfort with his candidates. That's a tough situation.
At number 3, what's probably in a 2-quarterback draft, you're not going to have the chance to move up because if the 2 quarterbacks declare.
Isn't it a 3-quarterback draft now that Ty Simpson declared?
Would you take him at number 3? I don't know that I would take him at number 3.
Not me, no.
I know that I tweeted yesterday that it's a 3-quarterback draft, which is probably why you got the smirk on your face. And I think Ty Simpson's a first-round pick, but I don't know that I would take him at number 3 overall.
There is one. This is an interesting point from Zach61, who's clearly a Heed the Call listener as well, who says regarding Baltimore, you don't want to be the guy replacing the guy, but the guy replacing the guy who replaced the guy. Whoever follows up John Harbaugh's tenure in Baltimore is going to have a lot of pressure to come in there and win immediately because it's a playoff caliber they were Super Bowl or bust before this season. Obviously they busted, but it's a lot of expectations. But also you have the stability of Eric DeCosta's and that whole organization just being a beacon of stability for the last 18 years with a playoff-ready roster that you don't have to rebuild. You just have to get the most out of. So I can understand why the Ravens would be the most attractive. I'm just saying it doesn't come without it's a thorny rose. Every rose has its thorn, Justin, and that rose has some thorns. The Dolphins, the Dolphins to me are one of the worst situations as well because of Tua and his contract. Yeah. The Giants, if you like Jackson Dart as a candidate, then you might like the Giants opening. But if Joe Shane, unless you're a guy like Harbaugh who has the cachet to say, I'm not coming to be your coach unless you fire Joe Shane and let me help pick the guy the way, Liam Cohen sort of got to do with Trent Baalke down in Jacksonville, was like, I'm not coming to coach if Trent Baalke's the GM. And Jacksonville was like, okay, we really want you. Bye, Trent Baalke. I imagine New York would do that if John Harbaugh gave them a similar demand. But as of now, other candidates who aren't John Harbaugh have to be looking at that job well, do I really want to go work for Joe Shane who he's going to get fired next year unless I can win the team 10 games somehow. If they go 4-12, 4-13 next year in New York, Shane's out and the new head coach will not be out because he's a new head coach unless he's a disaster. There's a lot of so the Titans are pretty high on the list is where I'm getting at. And that's where you were getting at too. They're probably not the top job opening, but they're a pretty attractive destination considering everything you said. New stadium, cap space, high draft pick, franchise quarterback that we all believe in. Should we
They've
talk
got a
Jesse
lot of-
Minter? We've done questions for a while.
Yeah,
let's
I was
get
literally
to
about
Jesse
to say,
Minter.
we're 30 minutes in and we haven't gotten to the second new candidate yet. So let's talk a little Jesse Minter, defensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, you and I have done we've brought him up on multiple episodes. Did we do I think we did a whole episode where he was one of the two candidates that we talked about.
Yes.
I'm not going to add a ton. Look, it makes sense that they've requested him. We've always heard he's going to be one of the most requested, sought after candidates on the market. I don't know why. I can't get fully on board with him the way that I can with the other first timers I like Chris Shula and Jeff Hafley. I just, I don't know if I'm over ranking some of the clips I've seen him talking, and I don't get that excitement vibe from him. Look, no doubt I love that he's worked under the Harbaughs. He's got a lot of great things going for him. Absolutely. Look, if he's Mike McDonald 2.0, I could sign up for that. You know what? He worked under both Harbaughs. He won a national championship at Michigan. Very much followed the same career path that Mike McDonald worked for both Harbaughs too, right? If I'm recalling correctly. So very much following the same career path that Mike McDonald did. I definitely think he's smart when it comes to X's and O's. I have no doubt about it. I enjoy watching that Chargers defense. They've had some personnel issues. I think he's done a good job coaching to them. I like Jesse Minter. I just can't bring myself to love Jesse Minter.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think that he has a lot of good qualities. I think particularly as far as a teacher and as far as a schemer that puts his players in a position to succeed and teaches them where they're supposed to be and when they're supposed to be there. I think he does a lot of stuff really, really well. I question his ability to build a staff. What connections does he have? Because maybe he has them and we don't know, but he spent a lot of time with the Harbaughs, but not a lot of time here and here and here and here and here and rubbing elbows with a bunch of different potential coaching staff members, so I'm worried about that. And I worry about can he really lead a room? Can he command a space? Does he have the presence and the charisma? I know he's a good teacher. I know he's a good one-on-one guy and players love him, but can he get in front of the whole team when it's training camp and it's not 53 guys, it's 90 plus guys and all your coaching staff and lead that day one of team meeting and get his troops rallied? I don't know. I don't know him personally, obviously. All I know is what I've seen in press conferences. He doesn't necessarily seem to, he doesn't strike me as the most charismatic. And does that really matter? I mean, at the end of the day, are we valuing this too much because of what the Titans just fired? And now we're pivoting to Brian Callahan wasn't a great charismatic leader. Do we need to go hire somebody who is Mike Vrabel, essentially? Sorry. But that's the big hang up for me on Minter. It's not about, is he a bad coach? It's about, is he ready for the head coaching job? And I know Jim Harbaugh said absolutely he's going to be a great head coach, but I don't know. Minter's outside my group of top candidates, but he's still in a category where I'd be cautiously wait and see, not going to hate the move, but he's not my preferred option either.
Same. I would certainly have him above the ones that we think are disasters. Quickly addressing this question, I know you started another one that you want to get to. Are there any other coach from the Harbaugh tree that has succeeded? Look, off the top of my head, I think they've done a good job identifying coaching talent, right? Anthony Weaver left there to be the defensive coordinator of the Dolphins and now has been a finalist for a bunch of head coaching jobs, is probably eventually going to get one. I like Denard Wilson as defensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans. I think he's done a great job with the personnel. I think John in Baltimore hired a bunch of good offensive coordinators. I love Todd Monken. I think Greg Roman was there before, and now is working for the other Harbaugh, right, in the Chargers. I think they've done a great job identifying coaching talent, even if off the top of my head, I don't know that a ton of them went on to be these, Mike McDonald level head coaches, but I think for the most part, the Harbaughs do a really good job identifying coaches.
Yeah, I was starring comments, Justin, to get to later on so we don't miss them, but I just wanted to hit this one from Patrick. Callahan wasn't a great leader, but he did say,
I know what we have in this room.
And
I knew you were going to hit the button.
I believe in what you guys are capable of.
Those drops were supposedly retired, RIP, but here they are, hitting them again. Did you guys see the Zach Lyons tweet about retread coaches and their general lack of success in second jobs? Yes, we have seen this and talked about how a lot of these guys have to be outliers if they're going to have success. But guys that don't have to be outliers because they had a winning record in their first stop would be Mike McCarthy, John Harbaugh, obviously, and the other one who had a winning record in his previous stop, who is currently being interviewed by the Titans as a retread coaching option. No, it's not Matt Nagy. No, it's not Robert Saleh. No. It's Jason Garrett.
Wait, what? You said it's not Matt Nagy. Didn't he go 34? He went 34 and 31.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, Matt Nagy did have a winning record.
Nagy.
You're right.
Nagy went 34 and 31 with Justin Fields, Nick Foles, and Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback. So technically, Nagy's in that grouping as well. We did see the tweet, Nathan. I had a good debate with I had a good debate with Zach this morning because I think there's just so much more that go. Like, listen, and I'm not saying that Zach was saying, you could predict every single time based on the past history, but I just don't love using that logic because probability would have told you Ken Wisenhunt was going to come to Tennessee and do a great job. He won a lot, right? Like, stop pretending that we could use these models to 100% predict how these guys are going to do in their next job. There is so much that goes into the success and failure of a football team that we can't just put things on spreadsheets and say we definitely know which way it's going to go. I've talked a lot about Robert Saleh and the challenges that he encountered in East Rutherford with the Jets, with the head coach, with the quarterback, Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles, making Aaron Rodgers the de facto GM, working for a terrible owner in Woody Johnson, who hasn't been able to find any success no matter who he hires. There's so much more that goes into that than just saying, well, Robert Saleh didn't succeed with the Jets. He's definitely going to fail the next time out. Ken Wisenhunt succeeded with the Arizona Cardinals. He's definitely going to succeed the next time out. We don't know. Yes, you could play the probability game, but there's just too many factors at play for my liking.
Yeah, I totally agree. Justin, let's get to some of the other candidates. This happened yesterday. The Titans requested to interview Kliff Kingsbury and Mike McCarthy. Now, we have talked about Kingsbury a bit on the show because it's been swirling that the Titans wanted to request to interview him. They just hadn't done so yet. But they finally did yesterday, making it official. So Kliff Kingsbury will come in. We still like him, but we're still scared of him, I think is sort of where we're at. Like, he's one of the guys that I'd be interested to see how it goes. I think he makes for a great OC option, Justin, because if he will take that job, he may not have to take an OC job, but if he needed to, first of all, Kliff, get on the phone with your old offensive coordinator at Texas Tech, Eric Morris, and say, tell me about Cam Ward. Should I want to go coach him? And Eric Morris will say, yes, go coach Cam for a year and you'll be a head coach next season. And I think that works out, actually, because I don't think Kliff's offenses have a ton of staying power in the league. Like, they get figured out, and then he doesn't adjust. Or he tries to adjust, but he has a quarterback who's maybe a little more limited in terms of, like, complex field progressions, especially after running a simpler offense, which is what Kliff sort of like. It's a very, like, get the ball, like, what am I trying to say? You don't have to think a lot in Kliff's offense. It's like, go play football. Your assignment is fairly simple. It's like a one read, this or that, go do it. And I like that. But after a year, then like teams start to catch up or injuries start to pile up because he plays so fast. Like the no huddle stuff, his teams run more snaps than other teams, so his players have more wear and tear, so they get hurt a little fast. Like after a year, get him out of here. He'll go be a head coach somewhere, but he'll have imparted a bunch of wisdom into Cam Ward for that season, have the Titans looking great, have them be an attractive destination for the next offensive coordinator, whoever it is, whether it's an internal promotion or an outside candidate, because Kliff just got the offense playing so well. That's my pitch for Kliff Kingsbury. I don't want him to be the Titans head coach, but if they decide to hire him, I'll have to assume it's because of those connections, everything that dances around Cam Ward. Again, Kliff Kingsbury was Eric Morris's head coach. Eric Morris was the OC. Cam Ward was recruited by Eric Morris at Incarnate Word and then played for him at Washington State, in case you don't know all those connections. That's interesting.
I'm so with you with everything you said. I'm glad we're on agreement on this one because I don't think Kliff is the home run that most think he is. I agree that his offenses lack staying power. They're difficult. They get figured out. He clashed with Dan Quinn in Washington for a reason. He washed out of Arizona for a reason. On the flip side, yes, two young quarterbacks became offensive rookie of the years on his watch and Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels, I see Kliff as almost like the ultimate risk. He almost might as well be a first-time candidate to me because I think there's this potential for it to go greatly, and I think there's this potential for it to go terribly. And that scares me. It kind of has me out on him. The one thing, like you mentioned, I love the connection to the Eric Morris, Cam Ward offense. Like maybe that would be really good for Cam. And that's the scenario I just painted that it would that would blow up. That would, it'd go perfectly well with Kliff Kingsbury. It's the connection to the offense that Cam Ward knows and likes to run. But on the flip side, man, he scares the heck out of me.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's go last now to Mike McCarthy, who the Titans requested last night. So much wasted air, Justin. Look, we record an episode every single day. We're going to have to talk about what's the latest happenings, but the news during this coaching search is moving so fast that one day we're reporting Easton Freeze writes an article, this is like 2 or 3 weeks ago, writes an article where Mike McCarthy's listed as a candidate he expects the Titans to have interest in. Earlier this week, Paul Kaharski gets on the radio and says Kliff Kingsbury was the best play caller in the NFL. Yes, Joe, sorry. Audio audience must get so annoyed when we're like mid-sentence and a comment comes in, Justin, and then we just like shift gears immediately and answer the question. Yeah, we can answer this before we get to McCarthy.
Yeah, I want to quickly answer this from Jarrett. Yes, Jarrett, Dan Quinn and Kliff Kingsbury, philosophical differences about how to run the offense. Apparently they disagreed on a lot of things, even pass run split. Like they disagreed on so much. It sounds like Dan Quinn does want to bring in like a Kyle Shanahan disciple potentially to run the offense. And that's not Kliff Kingsbury. They just started disagreeing big time about how to move forward on offense. Hence the firing, mutual splitting, whatever you want to call it. They just didn't see eye to eye at all.
Yeah. And it's crazy because the offense was so good, and Jaden Daniels spoke on Monday about how much he loves Kliff Kingsbury and loves playing for him. And then on Wednesday, there was reports that he was shocked and confused and disappointed. So you're putting your young quarterback, the supposed future of your franchise, in an interesting situation with that one. But that's the other thing that gives me that I like about Kliff, by the way, is that Jaden Daniels freaking loved him. They had a special connection. He called it special. And he said, we've really built that over the last 2 years. And then the next day, he's out the door. Mike McCarthy, on Wednesday, I think, or Tuesday maybe, Paul Kaharski goes on the radio and says, because of a relationship issue with Chad Brinker, he's not going to interview with the Titans. But he did say, I don't have that as firmly as I'd like.
Yeah, I don't expect him to be the hire, things of that nature. There was
to be interviewed.
Right. And now he is being interviewed. We acknowledge that. Excited about this. From the moment they fired Brian Callahan in October, you and I were talking about Mike McCarthy immediately. And initially we did that because of the relationship with Chad Brinker. Absolutely, that was a big part of it, was why we started talking about Mike McCarthy. And now things have changed. We know Mike Borgonzi's calling the shots here, pulling the strings. Going to be the one making the hire. So maybe that relationship with Chad Brinker might mean a little less. Whether, by the way, that goes both ways. Whether it's a good relationship or a bad relationship with Chad Brinker, it means a little less now that Mike Borgonzi is sitting in the head chair, sitting at the head of the table. I like Mike McCarthy. Yes, it's the safer retread route, but I just, two young quarterbacks, Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers, did well on his watch, won a Super Bowl, 60% all-time career win percentage. That's incredibly high, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not familiar with what all-time win percentages normally look like for head coaches, Mike McCarthy, to be above 60%, it's incredibly high. And he did it in Green Bay. And I'm comfortable saying he did it in Dallas. I know, they didn't win a Super Bowl. They routinely fell short of the playoffs. That's a consistent Jerry Jones problem in Dallas. I mean, every coach they hire seems to be the same thing. Either they're bad or they're quite good during the regular season and then fall flat in the playoffs. That's been a theme for the Cowboys forever, not just a Mike McCarthy theme. I think he would come here, give really good stability, for Cam Ward. He runs a simple offense that I could see Cam Ward having a lot of freedom in and thriving in. You want to go the safe route because you don't want the Brian Callahan 2.0. I don't think it gets any safer than Mike McCarthy.
If you want to go on the same path of evolvement that you did after you fired Ken Wisenhunt, where you hired Mike McCarthy to be your sort of foundation setter, culture builder, stabilizer, and wherever he tops out, he tops out. Maybe that's a Super Bowl. With Mike McCarthy, it could be because he's done it before. Maybe it's a second-round loss in the playoffs, or maybe it's, you go 10-7 3 years in a row, and you're like, we're not a terrible dumpster fire anymore, but we're just not getting there. And then you go find your Mike Vrabel, who could be anybody by the time that happens. If that's an interesting route to you, and a lot of fans are like, screw that, hire the best candidate who can win a Super Bowl today. Don't hire a floor raiser who tops out at 10-7. I'm not saying Mike McCarthy tops out at 10-7. I'm saying that could happen. Mike McCarthy has multiple 12-win seasons with the Dallas Cowboys very recently, okay? So Mike McCarthy knows how to win a lot of games. There's things about Mike McCarthy's system that really intrigue me for Cam Ward. I'm going to give a big shout out to Zach and Stoney on Football and Other F Words. I listened to their full pod last night. They made a lot of great points about what could be the best system for Cam Ward. Because this Callahan system that is a derision of Shanahan stuff and McVay stuff, like through its own evolutionary process, it ultimately has its roots in McVay, Shanahan, and Shanahan, the Grandmaster Shanahan. Talking about Mike now, not Kyle. That's where it all comes from, right? And that system is so based and so, like, the importance of timing in that system. And it's not just the quarterback's timing, but the receivers' timing, tight ends, everyone in the route, running backs. Everyone's timing has to be extremely precise. And the quarterback has to be extremely precise with that timing in order to make the offense function. And it's one reason why a guy like Brock Purdy, who doesn't have the most arm talent in the world, as evidenced by the fact that he went last in the draft, is able to execute that offense because it's about the mental side for him, and he plays on time really well, and he gets the ball to the right spot. And those are the things that I'm not saying Cam Ward can't do those things, but they're not his greatest strengths. If you're putting Cam Ward in that system, you're not emphasizing what he does best, which is attack the vertical seams, get outside the pocket, buy time, and make plays outside of structure. Like, take his aggressiveness and use it to your advantage, as opposed to trying to neuter his aggressiveness to fit your system, which, not that those systems aren't aggressive, but especially Callahan's version was very much, and we talked about Joe Burrow's yards per attempt for 5 years while Callahan was the offensive coordinator at length 2 years ago when Callahan was initially hired. But really low yards per attempt numbers for Joe Burrow because it's a lot of dink and dunk, get the ball out, get the ball to your playmakers. You've heard Cam Ward say that. I just need to get the ball to my playmakers. Not always. Not always. Sometimes you need to make the play as the quarterback. And Mike McCarthy's system is totally different. It's not exactly the Air Coryell stuff that we talked about Jason Garrett running, that Kellen Moore ran, that Mike McCarthy took over. There's a weird conflation of the system with what does Mike McCarthy actually want to run, because he continued to run a version of Kellen Moore's system in Dallas after Kellen Moore left, but also adapted it with some West Coast concepts, some horizontal spacing stuff to complement vertical shots. But a large part of the system is you don't read shallow to deep. You read deep to shallow. And a lot of Callahan's passing concepts read shallow to deep. So you have a quarterback in Cam Ward who wants to be aggressive and go deep, and you're trying to train him to read shallow first in the Callahan-Shanahan systems and McVay systems, not always with McVay. It's complicated. I'm simplifying this to a point where people are going to tell me I'm wrong because I'm making it too simple. But the point is, put Cam Ward in a system that doesn't have to be rigid with timing, that can be more loose and more aggressive attacking downfield, that can create more opportunities for him to create out of structure. I think it's a great fit from that standpoint. So Mike McCarthy remains, the shine has worn off a little bit just because there are other shiny new toys for me to be distracted by, like Chris Shula and etc. But overall, I'm still extremely in on Mike McCarthy as one of my top 3 candidates to coach this team.
I think you make a great point about the system because, listen, the Callahan as it derives, the West Coast offense, as we sometimes call it, you look at, Brock Purdy, they want the mundane, right? They want a guy that could execute the mundane on time, on schedule, get the ball out. Kyle Shanahan, I got it on pretty decent account, didn't want the 49ers to draft Trey Lance when they drafted Trey Lance. You know who he wanted them to draft? Mac Jones. Who he has now as his backup. And guess what? Had a lot of success with Mac Jones this year as the backup quarterback. Look at Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. To me, maybe this is too stereotypical. They might as well be the same quarterback, right? Like weak arms, really good pre-snap, readers. They know where to go with the football. That's what they want in that system. And you're right. That's the anti-Cam Ward. Cam Ward wants to make the big plays. He wants to attack the seam. He wants to be aggressive. He wants to get off script, create magic, when the play breaks down. And I agree. Someone like Mike McCarthy's system, I think, is a lot likelier to invite that, to welcome that, not try to change them, not try to fit a square peg in a round hole. And that's part of the reason that I really like Mike McCarthy as a candidate, in addition to how safe I feel in his big burly arms. The retread candidate who's won a ton of football games throughout his career, has won a Super Bowl, has done good with young quarterbacks throughout his career. I am a Mike McCarthy fan. I am.
All right, Justin, where do we want to go from here? I've been starring some questions. Who doesn't want what for Cam Ward?
Don't want what? Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious, Big. What will you refer to?
Is it an Art Smith? Art Smith.
Is better for Will Levis. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think we're very high on Art Smith. I mean, if we were ranking them 1 to 15, the candidates that they've interviewed, Art Smith's probably like between 7 and 10, if I had to guess. And and he's not lower because, Mike McCoy, Jason Garrett, Steve Spags, like those guys are definitely worse.
Ed Henry asks, at this stage, do in-person interviews indicate a higher level of interest or just the way the schedule falls? I think a little bit of both. Guys who are totally available and not with a team can come in and do an in-person interview without any fear. Guys who are still coaching on playoff teams this past week could only do Zoom interviews. So if you hear about a guy who is totally available, not with a team, doing a Zoom virtual interview, there may be a tiny bit less interest. If you hear about a guy who is on a playoff team waiting to come do an in-person interview, there might be a little more interest. But I think overall it's more about schedule and timing than it is about interest at this stage. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. I think, TBD on that front. But a good question here as well. Doesn't Cam feel like the type of quarterback that could overcome McCarthy's playoff issue? I do. I trust Cam Ward in the big moments. Anytime there's a gotta-have-it moment, I'm comfortable with Cam Ward being the quarterback in that scenario. And for me, that's going to happen in the playoffs. Once this team, not if, but once and when this team gets back to playoff contention and they're playing in those important games, I like having Cam Ward as the quarterback. And I don't necessarily concern myself, with, Mike McCarthy's the head coach. They can't come through. No, I agree. I think Cam Ward can if there's even something to overcome. I think we blow out of proportion that there's something to overcome. Dallas Cowboys losing the playoffs, that's just what they do.
Winning in the playoffs is hard. Especially when the league has been dominated by specific figures for such a long time. Although the NFC, not as much. Just a great comment here from Chris Lawrence, our buddy Chris, who helped us found Broadway Sports Media, by the way. Yes. MCA is close to 5.75K subs. Let's get them to 6K. The Justins do such a great job. If you are subbed, make sure to spread the word. If you are not subbed, why? Chris, appreciate you always, man. Thank you for putting this comment out there. Everyone listen to Chris. Come on. All right, Justin, I'm throwing this to you. Is Harbaugh a chance for Tennessee?
We haven't heard, we haven't heard definitively that they're interested in him yet. Now, that could change today. It could change tomorrow. They're already up to 15 candidates. I don't know how many more they're going to be adding. And I felt like Shula and Minter were like two that I definitely wanted to see them add before the end of it. Do they add two more? Do they get to 17? If they do, it's Harbaugh and Mike McDaniel, right? Like those are the only two left. I feel like that could possibly get added. Is Harbaugh a chance? I mean, we've got to hear for sure that they're interested first and foremost. I'd like to think that they will be. I mean, why wouldn't you be? But we'll see. I hope that we hear some Titans interest in Harbaugh.
Tony Grossi, who I think he covers the Browns, right? Yes, Browns and NFL analyst. Tony Grossi was on the radio in Cleveland an hour ago and said that John Harbaugh's requirements to be interested in his next head coaching job, a $20 million a year contract, which is like $12 million more per year than the average high head coaching salary, $10 million staff budget, be one of the most expensive staffs in the league, total authority over the roster, would like to select his own GM. I don't know if this is true or if this is totally made up nonsense or if it's just a leverage play because he could say this and some team's going to acquiesce. I don't think John Harbaugh's coming to Tennessee. I think John Harbaugh being on the market helps Tennessee because the Giants and the Dolphins and the Dolphins and the Ravens even being open jobs doesn't help Tennessee. But the Giants being uber distracted by Harbaugh to the point where they might even miss out on Stefanski, who could then go to Baltimore. It all helps the Titans get one of the top candidates that we think the Titans would. Like, Mike McCarthy is interviewing with the Giants and the Titans. If the Giants are all in on Harbaugh with a fallback to Stefanski, with a fallback to McCarthy, then there's a lot better chance the Titans are able to get Mike McCarthy. Okay, Justin, before we go, I need to make the case for Vance Joseph. We're almost at an hour here on this stream, and this could take me 20 minutes. Just kidding. So let's get into the Vance Joseph conversation. Vance Joseph is a extremely well-respected coach in this league. And if you don't believe that, take a look at this chart again. Vance Joseph, who's your favorite coaching candidate, Justin? Chat. Take John Harbaugh out of the mix. Who's your favorite head coach candidate in this cycle? Vance Joseph has gotten more interview requests than your favorite coaching candidate. That says something. Justin, you say this all the time, that people in the league know before we know as fans, right? They're ahead of this stuff. They know who's going to be the next whatever. And sure, they strike out and miss all the time. And sure, Vance Joseph had a terrible run as Denver's head coach from 2017 to 2018. You know what I've been doing, Justin? I've been going back and watching Vance Joseph press conferences, Vance Joseph mic'd up at practice from 7-8 years ago on the Denver YouTube channel. I watched a full 13-minute Vance Joseph press conference, Monday morning presser, after their 8th straight loss in his first season as the Broncos head coach, just to get a sense of what this guy's like when times are tough, when he's going through adversity, because God knows the first season in Tennessee could be full of adversity before he's able to turn things around. There are a lot of concerns with Vance Joseph that I fully acknowledge are concerns. He was, if you listen to F Words Pod, which I've already referenced multiple times, they talked about this too. He was one of the worst in-game management coaches, and that's not, you can't deny that. You can't just gloss over it either. Like, that happened. It's one of the first interview questions I have for him is, we looked back at your tenure in Denver, and you made these weird 4th down decisions, kick a field goal on 4th and 1 from the 6, or your timeout management was not very good, or talk to us about your in-game strategy management, how you think you've developed, and what you would do to put yourself in a better position to not make these kinds of mistakes. Is it hiring a guy like Vrabel had Stretch for help with the in-game decision stuff? Is it, having someone on staff like that? Is it his own personal growth and better understanding? Is it, I'm not going to call defensive plays, which he actually didn't call plays as the head coach in Denver, but so that I can be more focused on managing the game. Whatever it is, I need to hear that answer before I'm just sold on Vance Joseph, because that is a big concern. But the pros for Vance Joseph are extreme. There's so many pluses that he could bring to the table. Now, will they come through? Again, this is all spec. I don't know how many times I have to say, no, we don't know anything. I'm just making the case, okay? Vance Joseph apparently is apparently very, very good at relating and communicating with players. He emphasizes communication all the time. He emphasizes growth and a journey, and he has a saying that success is not, I can't remember exactly what it is now. Success is not permanent or something like success. It's something about success. Just because you won a game doesn't mean you have success. Success has to continue to be earned every week
in front of the team, because it probably wouldn't have gone over very well if you butchered it. No, I'm all kidding aside. I don't hate Vance Joseph. I certainly don't like him as much as you do. I think where I ultimately land on him is that it's fairly hard to judge his tenure based on the quarterbacks that he had. That he had in Denver. I mean, I think I said it a couple episodes ago. Brock Osweiler, Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian, and Case Keenum. That was the 4 quarterbacks that Vance Joseph got, quote unquote, straddled with in Denver. Really hard to win when those are your quarterbacks. Now, he did routinely fumble in-game situations. bungle. That's the combination of the two: bundle, fumble, bungle. He routinely bungled in-game coaching situations. Not good. He was not a good in-game management coach. We had some questions in here. Sorry to say, but it was decent, fair question. How much of his 6 interview requests maybe has to do with the Rooney Rule? That's a good question. I mean, maybe a little bit, but he's not the only you could interview Raheem Morris and Robert Saleh and satisfy the 2 Rooney Rule, right? 2 coach Rooney Rule. So it doesn't have to be Vance Joseph. Like, Titans have multiple minority coaches on this initial list. So it's not like everyone.
They could just interview Denard Wilson. If they really needed this, they could just call it, and they didn't even want to interview Denard Wilson. So they're not concerned about doing Rooney Rule shenanigans because their net is so wide, they're going to hit 2 minority candidates anyway.
Agreed. So,
I have
maybe
more.
Some of it has to do with it, but I don't think we could give full credit for Vance Joseph's 6 interviews to the fact that he's a minority coach.
Here's the thing that gets glossed over when you talk about Vance Joseph. Okay, Peyton Manning retired 1 year before Gary Kubiak, and Gary Kubiak retired, and then Vance Joseph was hired as the head coach. Okay, this is a team that had just come off a Super Bowl, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 victory. Vance Joseph was not on that staff. He was coordinating the Dolphins defense in 2016, the year before he became the head coach of the Denver Broncos. We're going to get to that one.
Yes,
that question that just came in. Vance Joseph took over, basically was handed a city that just had a nuclear bomb dropped on it and said, rebuild this city, mayor. And he said, where do I even start? Like, again, you mentioned the quarterbacks. I don't think you did it enough justice. Like, Trevor Siemian started at quarterback for almost an entire season with Paxton Lynch and Brock Osweiler getting spot starts in there. And then Case Keenum the next season was the starter for it was 16, all 16 games. So it's not like he had this foursome of quarterbacks going in and out. No, he had terrible quarterbacks the whole time. But the majority, the one who started the most games was Keenum, and the one who started the second most games was Trevor Siemian. Can we talk about how terrible that is for an offense? And now Zach on F-Words Pod was going on the other night about how his running back usage when he was there was really frustrating for him as a fantasy football owner at the time. With I think Sean Moreno maybe was a back I can't remember the exact roster, but okay, Zach, we're going to talk about fantasy football. It is very funny, almost. I don't know how funny it is right now, but his offensive coordinator was Mike McCoy, so that's just a hilarious coincidence. But he was asked to take over a situation that was impossible to take over, especially for a first-time head coach who doesn't understand what their own strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to all the duties of a head coach, the in-game management stuff, all the requests you're inundated with throughout the week as a head coach that you never even had to think about as a coordinator. That's a really, really tough situation. On top of the fact that there's no viable quarterback option, and he had the defense playing pretty well, especially by the end of his second year there when he did get fired. He had them up in the top 10 in terms of points allowed as a defense by the end of his tenure there. And his defense right now is incredible what he's doing in Denver. He is a guy who he's not that old yet, right? He's, 52, 53, something like that? I feel like this is the information you come prepared with. 53 when you're doing when you know you're going to give a spiel on somebody. But I had it. 53. I was right. 53 years old, and he's shown the ability to continue to be an adaptable schemer. And this is one of my favorite parts about Vance Joseph, is it's not like he's running the same scheme he was running in 2015 when he was a defensive coordinator, or what the guy who was defensive coordinator when he was defensive backs coach was running. And that's the other side of it. He is a defensive backs coach background. You bring him into Tennessee, where they have a big need with the defensive backs, and let him rebuild the room how he wants to rebuild it. He has been highly praised for his ability, as I said, to relate to players of all kinds, first-round picks, rookies, veterans. He has an uncanny ability to be that guy that players love to play for. And so he does deserve a second shot. People talk about how Matt Nagy has earned his second chance. And look, don't get me wrong, Nagy's a fine candidate. He's middle of the pack for me. But has he really earned a second chance the way Vance Joseph has? I mean, Matt Nagy went back to the Chiefs, and that was a non-play calling OC for the Chiefs in his time since being head coach. That's all he's done. Vance Joseph, on the other hand, has been a defensive coordinator multiple stops and now coordinating the best defense in the league and has waited 7 years for his next opportunity, 8 years, I guess, for his next opportunity. That, to me, is really earning it. It's very rare for a defensive head coach to get a second opportunity. It's very common for an offensive coach to get a second opportunity. So the fact that he's even in the mix tells you how widely respected he is by other people in the league, the job he's done in Denver. Do I want the Titans to be the team to give him that second chance? That's where I start to get a little bit nervous, but I think Vance Joseph deserves a second chance, and if he lands with the right team, has a real shot to be a successful head coach who coordinates one of the best defenses in the league. Although you do wonder, what's he going to do on the offensive side of the ball? This is my other big point. I'm sorry, Justin, I'm going to keep going really quick. Davis Webb. There's no guarantee he can bring Davis Webb. There's no guarantee Davis Webb is ready to be an offensive coordinator. But if that pairing is real, Davis Webb, we talked about Kliff Kingsbury, Eric Morris, Cam Ward connections. How about Davis Webb, who played for Kliff Kingsbury and Eric Morris at Texas Tech? Cam Ward played for Eric Morris. They're all connected. They all, bring me Davis Webb. I don't even think Davis Webb would run Sean Payton's system. I think he would run a version of the air raid that Kliff ran, that Eric Morris ran with Cam. 4 verticals. We window shopping over here. It's exactly what Cam Ward would want to run. They could talk about playing for Eric Morris together. Davis Webb's only 30 years old, young enough to relate to Cam Ward, but old enough to be an authoritative figure in the room. Now, Davis Webb's getting head coach interviews right now. So I don't know if he's going to come be an offensive coordinator, but he hasn't called plays yet. He's a pass game coordinator and not a play caller and quarterbacks coach for Bo Nix in Denver. By the way, helped develop Bo Nix from his rookie season to where he is now. If they can bring Davis Webb, then I'm sold on Vance Joseph because I think Davis Webb could help Cam Ward. Even if you lose him after 1 or 2 seasons, the amount of knowledge he could impart in that 1 or 2 seasons is worth it to me. I know I'm long-winded here. I think Vance Joseph is going to have success at his next stop. That's all I got.
We see the questions about a top 3 candidates. We are going to do it. I'm going to get to that comment in 1 second. We'll end with that. Graver and I will give our top 3. The rule will be of candidates they've already been requested to interview. So we will not include a Mike McDaniel or John Harbaugh in that. In responding to you about Vance Joseph, I'm willing to concede, and I've said this, I'll say it again, the quarterbacks he was forced to coach with makes it really hard to judge his tenure in Denver. It does. But the in-game management stuff was really bad, and that certainly paints him in a negative light. I love Davis Webb. I'm going rapid fire through your points. I love Davis Webb. I think he's a future head coach. Really good, young, brilliant offensive mind. I would certainly feel better about Vance Joseph if he brought Davis Webb to be his offensive coordinator. I have a hard time agreeing that why does Matt Nagy deserve a second chance before Vance Joseph? Well, Matt Nagy went 34-31. Vance Joseph went 11-21. So I think that's a fair point to say that Matt Nagy, for some, is going to deserve a second chance more than Vance Joseph, and I think that's totally fair to say.
Totally.
I don't want to be the one that finds out if Vance Joseph's a great retread head coach, but I think there's a chance that he could do well in his next spot. Quickly answering
One last thing on Joseph. His scheme. So I didn't talk about his scheme at all. His scheme is brilliant. I'm not going to break it down right now. There's plenty of YouTube videos doing that I've watched.
I want to get to this tier question, so hurry up.
I know.
Joseph love.
So the thing about the way Vance Joseph coaches the defense is, first of all, he does a really good job of coordinating his coverage with his pass rush, of simulating pressures, bringing blitzes from sides where quarterbacks are not expecting them to come, where one guy's dropping, et cetera, et cetera. He does an incredible job with that stuff. But the thing that jumps out to me the most, Broncos have been leading the NFL in sacks, right? They've been incredible at sacking the quarterback 2 years in a row with Vance Joseph at DC. I wonder why. Yeah, they have good players, but they don't have Von Miller anymore. They don't have Myles Garrett back there. Yeah, Nick Bonito's a good pass rusher, maybe a great pass rusher. All their guys up front are great pass rushers individually, but I don't know if they're all great. And I shouldn't say great. They're all high level, above average, whatever. You would take them if you were the Titans trying to build your pass rush unit. But the thing that Vance Joseph does that makes this such a productive unit overall is his pass rushers rush to landmarks. They don't rush to the quarterback. It's all a coordinated attempt. And we heard Denard Wilson going on and on about coordinating the pass rush more this season in Tennessee. I don't know how much of that was happening or not happening the way that Vance Joseph does it, but it's the ends have to get to a spot. The tackles have to get to a spot that force the quarterback to other spots that can force him right into the path of a delayed blitz. Bang, sack. Like there's just such a smart, creative way that he uses his pass rushers. And just imagining him with Jeffrey Simmons, what Jeffrey Simmons could do coming off his best season already with a mind like Vance Joseph coaching him. And if you draft Ruben Bain or Arvell Reese in the first round at the top of the draft, I do think if you hire Vance Joseph, you're probably drafting... It like takes your draft options down to Arvell Reese versus Ruben Bain because he's a defensive-minded head coach and the Titans don't have a premier edge rusher. But I just wanted to say, like, I think Jeffrey Simmons could be like a 15-sack guy in Vance Joseph's system.
I really like Jeffrey Simmons the way he is now. So for me, it's not a good enough reason, for example, to go with someone like Vance Joseph.
Well, that's not the reason. The reason is you'd have a great defense for your young rookie quarterback to not have to put all the pressure on him. Vance Joseph's Broncos this year, whatever. I mean, we can finish this combo.
I'm wrapping up the Vance Joseph thing for now. I want to quickly address two questions before we get to the final one. No request for Kliff Kubiak concern you? Thoughts on why Tennessee is interested? No, I'm not concerned at all. I've heard a lot about his ability to lead, command a room. Obviously, good X's and O's guy, but I think Titans have more than enough good candidates on this list to totally alleviate any concerns I'd have about Kliff Kubiak being on this list. No, I'm not concerned at all. Good, interesting question someone asked at the bottom. Did Art Smith and Mike Munchak overlap in Tennessee? In fact, they did actually overlap in Tennessee. Arthur Smith joined this team in 2011, right, as quality control. And Mike Munchak was there up until 2013. So I believe they had 3 seasons together in Tennessee. Good question. And now finishing with the one, I think wrapping up this stream with the best question we've gotten. Who are your top 3 candidates? Graver, I'm going to go first. You go second. And we had a follow-up question that I think is awfully demanding. You guys think we're really smart, but I'm going to do it anyway. Can you throw up some, I think it said, can you throw up some, oh, yeah, here it is. If you could please also list your preferred OCs to pair with your top 3. That is a wild question on the spot, but I think I'm going to be able to do it. My number 1 candidate is Chris Shula. I am going all in on Chris Shula. The ones we talked about earlier, Nathan Scheelhaus, the quarterback's coach, passing game coordinator for the Rams, is one of the OCs there. Mike LaFleur there as well, who's a non-play calling OC. I like both of them. I also like the capability or the possibility that because Chris Shula is a first-timer, you might be able to force an OC like Matt Nagy on him. So I think there's lots of possibilities with Chris Shula. My number 2 is Mike McCarthy. I just really like the idea of the stability and Cam Ward in that offense. And who gives a damn who the offensive coordinator is if they hire Mike McCarthy? So I'm going to skip that one there. I'm going to take a cop-out. Number 3 for me is a tie between Jeff Hafley and Robert Saleh. I really like both of them. And with Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur could also be an OC candidate. I think we would look at potentially, the name's escaping me now. Mike McDaniel, obviously, for Robert Saleh as an offensive coordinator candidate. I like Saleh's ties to the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. I think he'd have some really good options there. And then as well, when it comes to Jeff Hafley, I'm forgetting some of the ones we talked about in the past, but I know the current Packers OC, Adam Stenavich, is a non-play calling OC, would be a good option. But if I'm recalling correctly, help me out if you remember, Graver, Jeff Hafley had a couple of OC candidates I talked about when we did the Jeff Hafley episode, but certainly Adam Stenavich was one of them.
Was one of the Miami guys like Frank Bush or anyone like that involved?
Frank Smith, you mean. Frank Smith, the non-calling OC there in Miami. And there was a third. Was it LaFleur as well? Now that you're refreshing my memory, there was 3 non-play calling OCs at the same time right now. I believe they were Frank Smith. I think Mike LaFleur might have been the other. And also, of course, Adam Stenavich there in Green Bay.
Yeah, I'll answer the question with my top 3. I'm putting the list up just so everyone can see who we're referencing. Now, again, this is top 3 of who they're interviewing. So, again, John Harbaugh, not included. Mike McDaniel, not included. My number 1 is also Chris Shula. Chris Shula has been my number 1 for months now. I've been comparing him to Mike McDonald, as there's a comment in the chat about that as well. I think that Mike McDonald, I just did so much work and research when the Titans hired Brian Callahan on the candidates that cycle, and Mike McDonald became my favorite guy pretty quickly in the process. And I think Chris Shula just has a lot of similarities to what Mike McDonald, why do I keep doing this? Mike McDonald and Chris Shula are the same candidate in my mind right now. Obviously, that doesn't mean that the Titans will be the number 1 seed in 2 years if they hire Chris Shula, but Chris Shula is easily my favorite. Exactly the OC candidates you mentioned. I'm still into the idea of them saying this is your coordinator. But if he has, if Shieldhouse can come over and be that guy too, like if he's ready to step into a play calling role, that's the big deal. I do like the idea if you're going to hire a first-time head coach like Shula, that you pair them with somebody like Matt Nagy, who's been a head coach before. Thank you, JP Adams, for the super chat. Thank you for the coverage. It's much appreciated. Thank you for the tip. It's much appreciated, JP Adams. Again, really appreciate you guys and your continued support of this channel. My number 2 guy is also Mike McCarthy. Justin, I don't know. Maybe we talk too much. But yeah, Mike McCarthy's still number 2 for me. I really like Mike McCarthy's ability to just, again, raise the level of what this team could be, especially if you're going to go retread. I think he is my favorite retread, obviously, because I have him second overall on my list here. And then third for me, everyone loves Robert Saleh. I'm only in on Robert Saleh if he can bring Mike McDaniel as his offensive coordinator. If he's going any other direction, for me, I'll pass on Saleh. And I understand everything that went wrong with the Jets was maybe not his fault, but you've said it before too, Justin. You can't just absolve the head coach of blame in these situations.
You don't have to have the same top 3 as me. I'm glad you've got a different number 3.
Yeah, I agree. And Jeff Hafley, also near my top 3, but not in my top 3. I have a tough time picking who my actual number 3 is, to be honest. I got to look at this list and make a decision.
It's not Hafley, it's not Saleh. I'm very curious. Is it Vance Joseph?
No, Vance Joseph. If Davis Webb is a guarantee, then it would be Vance Joseph. But that's the big thing. I don't know, man. I don't know who's number 3. It's so hard to say who's going to be a good head coach.
None of us have Stefanski.
Kevin Stefanski.
Interesting.
I'll take Stefanski. Yeah.
Is it Stefanski for you then?
I'll take Stefanski for number 3 because look, another guy who didn't have a winning record in Cleveland, who wasn't even, we talked about him winning the one playoff game with Baker Mayfield. He had COVID. He wasn't even around the team that week. He was watching the game from his couch as they beat the Steelers in the playoffs. So I don't know, Stefanski definitely has red flags. The accountability stuff we talked about yesterday or 2 days ago. I don't know. The days blur together for me this week, Justin, but I still think Stefanski is my number 3 option. I think this is the better way to.
Someone just put in the chat that they had Mike McDaniel as their number 2. You and I would have McDaniel. We decided to exclude him because they haven't actually talked to him yet.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, we're just basing that on the 15 names the Titans have requested to interview or have already interviewed, which is, again, on screen here. If you're just listening to this on audio, kind of weird. This is a live stream where we're interacting with chat. We want you here in the YouTube show. But that's okay if you're just an audio listener. We're not going to hold it against you. I think, Justin, it would be easier for me. I'm sitting there going, who's number 3? I don't know. It'd be easier for me to do a tier list, which the chat has been popping off about for 30 minutes, that we need to do a live tier list. We could do that. Not today. We've been going for an hour and 17 minutes. But they're not going to have hired anyone by next Friday. And we might have a more extensive group of candidates. Might be up to 18 names by next Friday. If they decide to bring in Kubiak and Brady and Campanile and Anthony Weaver, could get to 19. There are 4 other viable head coaching candidates in this cycle that the Titans have not shown interest in yet. Interesting. We'll see what happens. But maybe next Friday we'll come back here live again and do a tier maker. I can actually set up a tier maker, a screen share. We can actually do it live for the audience instead of just
We'll come prepared. I'll come prepared if I know we're doing that. I'll have my tier list. How are we doing it? 1, 2, 3. Someone mentioned in the comments earlier they loved my no. Steve Carell meme.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that should be the bottom tier. For sure.
I agree. And there's also, there was a comment a while ago that was the 2 categories should be blank check or hell no. I can't remember what the other one was, but I like blank check as a category too. That's top tier, blank check, John Harbaugh, but we can do that. I think that'd be fun. And then I also think what I talked about yesterday for early next week, is doing like the do not hire list. And it's really the like we would hire list, but it includes the do not hire list. But just calling it the do not hire list is like a more clickable YouTube thing. So I think we go that route. But that would be easier for me than sitting here ranking my top 3 candidates, because we're ranking it based on what? Intuition, vibes. Like we don't freaking know. We're not in the interview rooms. We have no idea.
Very in-depth analysis. Like we're all doing our.
Yeah.
We can't know. NFL teams get it wrong. I say NFL teams get it wrong. We're occasionally going to get it wrong too. They're getting paid millions of dollars to do it, right? So it's like, but don't. I know you're not trying to do it, but don't like vibes, intuition. No, we've done the research. I know everything there is to know about pretty much every single one of these guys. I've talked about all. If you've watched the last couple of months, where they come from, where they've worked, potential coordinator candidates. We have put the work in. So I feel comfortable with our analysis of the 15 candidates.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying ranking them feels like a fruitless fool's errand to me. Like we know their backgrounds. We have an idea what we think their strengths and weaknesses are. But how all that stuff translates to them being a head coach, impossible to say. And that's the fun and the exciting and the nerve-wracking part of this whole process is like we like the coaches we like. I had a pretty good idea that Mike McDonald was going to be a good head coach, and I can look back on that and say, wow, I was right. But I also had a pretty good feeling that Brian Callahan was going to be a good head coach. And I have to look back on that and say, I thought that, I'm stupid. But everyone thought that, so I'm not that stupid. But it's just really hard. It's harder. I've said it before. It's harder than evaluating players for the draft. This is a total roll a 20-sided die for the coaching candidate, and each side of that is a different possible outcome for their career, from Super Bowl winner to Brian Callahan level nuclear apocalypse. And that's the tough part, but it's fun, and that's why we do it. And that's why we've done a new episode every day this week and focused all 5 of them on coaching stuff.
We are going to end today's live stream with this comment here from Patrick. You guys are not just pretty faces. Thank you, Patrick. I consider myself to be pretty handsome, if I say so myself. We obviously trust your analysis research, which is a big reason why we watch a live visual tier list so we can make betting odds. Oh, that's interesting. It's mainly just
Isn't
fun.
so we can make. So we can make betting odds.
Excuse me. Listen. This Friday live stream, in my opinion, I think Graver will agree, has gone really well. You know, I came into this with very few expectations in terms of how many of you would tune in, chat. We've never done a Friday live stream before. You guys had gotten used to the Sunday live stream. You know when it was coming every week, so we had higher expectations about how many of you were going to tune in. The fact that so many of you have tuned in today, in fact, Graver, I think we peaked about 5 minutes ago. That's pretty outstanding. Now, we could be an hour, 15 minutes in and reach peak viewership. So this has gone really well. It ain't going to be the last Friday live stream, folks. I think we can tell you that right now. I'm operating under the assumption that Graver and I will be back next Friday with another live stream at the same time. Melo's book is the main merch for the channel. Go get Titans of the South if you haven't gotten it yet. I don't know what you're waiting for. It's available everywhere on Amazon right now. Titans of the South. Get your copy right now. Update on the chat name. Graver and I are still working through it. Okay? Graver and I are still working through it. We've been paying attention to your suggestions, and I promise you, we're not going to forget about it. We are going to have a name. We're just letting those suggestions filter in. We're going to come up with maybe our top 5, 10 and run a poll at some point and see which one wins. So that is absolutely going to happen. You work from home Fridays. That's perfect for you. We love to hear it. We will probably be here every single Friday throughout the – we'll see. We're going to be here most Fridays, especially these next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe it won't always be both of us. Sometimes Justin will be doing it. Sometimes I'll be doing it. Sometimes neither of us will do it, and there won't be one. But that'll probably be rare. I'm getting married in May, so I'll tell you right now, Friday, May 8th, I will not be live streaming. My fiance will not marry me if I do that. So, yeah, lots of fun stuff coming up though on the channel. We're excited to have this live a live poll for the chat name would be a great Friday topic. Hey, maybe we'll think about that. Yeah, and we can bring guests on. We're going to have a lot of fun with this stuff throughout the off season, and I'm excited for it. I think it's a good spot, a good replacement show for our Sunday stream that is the in-season show. Do the Friday stream as the off-season show. Maybe next season we do both. We'll think about it. We haven't decided yet. The marriage tax breaks aren't what they're cracked up to be, Graver. You know, Justin, we could close it with this because we never actually hit this question. Came in a really long time ago at the very beginning of the chat. From David Jenkins. I can't find it anymore. Is it still here?
I know. Live
Whatever it
stream
was.
the
Do you
wedding. I
guys?
think the comments.
It
coming
was.
in
Do you
right
guys
now.
ever talk football with your significant other?
Do you want me to take it first?
Yeah.
So my significant other is not a football fan at all, not one bit. But I have to give her all the credit in the world. She knows how much the Titans mean to me. She supports me through and through. Our first anniversary. Listen to this for loyalty. Our first anniversary, and you're gonna make me sound like a bad. This made me sound like a bad partner. Our first anniversary. I took her out to dinner the night before, but our first anniversary fell on a Sunday. This was a long time ago now, and we watched. I will never forget it. Titans Falcons. I think the Titans lost like 13-10. Zach Mettenberger was the quarterback. Was one of the worst Titans games I've ever watched. I didn't say that to her because she's going to say, what are we doing watching this then? She supports me like crazy, not only in my pursuit, my long-term pursuit of this career, which I have now achieved. She was always believed that I could do this full-time like I'm doing now for the last couple of years. She watches the Titans with me most Sundays, not every Sunday. And yes, occasionally she has to hear it and say, this comment right here is probably my favorite. Graver and Melo pretending their significant others is someone other than each other is adorable. I'm going to continue making up this whole spiel about my significant other. She supports me through and through. She supports my love for the Titans. And it's really impressive that she's able to put. Sometimes I call her if we're not together. If she goes out and doesn't want to watch the game, I call her to just bitch about how poorly they're playing. I think she recorded me once because she was trying to support me, but they lost the game. Like it was to the Bears. I don't know why I'm like 57-3, 51-3, and I went on a fandom tangent I'm embarrassed by now. That's like, this is outrageous. They do not deserve their paychecks this week. And she listens to how tall quarterbacks are, what the hand length is when I'm going through the draft process. She has to listen to a lot when it comes to football.
Yeah. Patrick obviously is not a heed the call listener, and that's okay. You don't have to listen to my other job podcast. But my fiance has been a prominent member of the show, not member of the show, but she's been featured a couple of times, and she's a talking point that comes up from time to time. Shout out to Brazil. My fiance Jessica, one of our the first game we ever watched together was Titans Bengals playoff game 2021, which was technically in 2022. So that was a great introduction to American football and the Titans. My fiance's originally from Switzerland, so she moved to LA like 11 years ago. We met in LA like 5 years ago. We started dating in 6 years ago. We started dating in LA 4 years ago. Moved to Dallas together in February. Got engaged 2 months before that. Getting married in May. I try to talk football with her. She knows how much I love Cam Ward. She knows that he's the supposed savior. She's very familiar with the work that we do for the podcast and the YouTube. It's like she watches. I make her watch like the Cam Ward, the Chosen One video, like check this out. Look at this cool thing I made. And she's like, okay, I guess I'll sit through this 25-minute video about something I care nothing about. But she does play fantasy football. She participates in a weekly pick'em against the spread pool that I'm in. She's in it too. She's in the fantasy football league with my friends from high school because we needed a 10th, and she was willing to do it. And she actually lost in the championship this year. She got third place last year. She's been incredible at playing fantasy football, and so she follows the league enough to know how to set her lineup and make picks. She doesn't have a favorite team. She doesn't care about the Titans outside of me caring about the Titans. And so I don't talk football with her that much, but it is like every Thursday. It's like, hey, did you set your lineup? Do you want to look at anything together? And questions like that.
Don't pull this question off the screen that I have. Oh, okay. There you go. I asked you not to do it, but what language does she speak, Graver? My wife is from France. Was a good one as well that I wanted you to get a chance.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, she speaks. She grew up speaking Italian, so she's from the Italian part of Switzerland. She also speaks French and German, not as well or as fluently, but she does speak those. Yes, you want this shout out from Brazil? Really?
No, go keep going. I just was pulling it up so I wouldn't lose it.
Okay, I already responded to it, but it's all good.
Well, okay. Now I'm going to interrupt you because you clearly don't see
because you speak because of Portuguese.
Yeah. Jose, if you're still here, okay, from Brazil, muito obrigado. Se tu não sabes, meus pais é português e falam muito português. E sabe, os portugueses, eles falam no Brasil, é muito diferente dos portugueses que a gente fala aqui no Toronto. É muito, muito diferente. E sabes, a língua não é a mesma coisa no Brasil da não é no Portugal. Mas e fala português e pensa, tu sabes o que ele está dizendo agora. E se tu não sabias que ele fala português assim, meus pais nasceram no Portugal, ok? So there you go. Ele está falando do melhor. See, he thinks I'm speaking all right, Jose. It would be hilarious if Jose didn't speak any Portuguese. Meus pais de Portugal, Jose, eles nasci lá no Portugal, e vão para trás no Portugal muitas vezes, so, e falam português bocadinho. Meus pais falam português em casa e nasci falando português, so, e falam bocadinho português e penso tu sabes.
Incredible. I am stunned. That was incredible, Justin. That was awesome. Really well done. Nicely done. That was amazing. Nobody knows what you said except for Jose, but we'll give it to you. Anything else? I think we can end it. It's been 90 minutes. It's our longest stream ever, officially, I think.
Jose just asked me, gosto de bacalhau, Graver. That is a traditional fish dish in Portugal. Of course I like bacalhau. I grew up eating very traditional Portuguese dishes. I've been to Portugal. I love it there. Never been to Brazil, but I'm a big fan. After that display, I want to be Melo significant. I've never been told that Portuguese is a sexy, beautiful language, but I'm glad that you feel that way, Patrick. I am bilingual, duolingual, whatever you want to call it. I do speak Portuguese, and I had to just show that to Jose because I imagine that probably shocked him as I did it.
That was incredible, Justin, and shout out to you for that. You make Portuguese look sexy, even if you didn't think so. You absolutely do. And that'll do it for this 90-minute stream here. You want to sign us off? You had any final words? Is there any more comments?
90 minutes. We probably won't go this long every single Friday, but this was an incredibly long, successful first live edition of the offseason, first ever Friday live stream, to my knowledge, if I am recalling correctly. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in, left a comment. For the super chat tips, thank you so much for that. When the stream ends, wait for it to end. Leave another comment so we can help get this episode into the algorithm for those who missed it live. Until Monday, when we are back with another episode of the Music City Audible, and until we see you all here for next Friday's live stream, thank you so much. Be safe out there and tighten up. Muito obrigado.
A Broadway sports media production.